Maybe someone's told you you're not really in love with that other person. It's just a fantasy. It's infatuation and it'll fade. But I'm guessing the reason you're watching this right now is because you're truly torn. You're trying to decide whether to stay with your spouse or leave and be with your lover. In other words, you're married, but there's someone else, and you're thinking, maybe I should end my marriage and go be with this other person because I've never felt love like this before. Now, if you're expecting me to say you're not actually in love with that person, then you're going to be disappointed. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm not going to deny what you're feeling. I'm not here to tell you you're wrong. I actually believe you when you say you're in love with someone else, and I understand it. But I am going to ask you to really think before you make a decision that will shape your life, and not just your life, but the lives of everyone involved. I want you to pause and consider a few things. Not to shame you, not to pressure you, but to help you make the best decision possible for everyone involved, and especially for you. Hi, I'm Dr. Joe Beam with the Marriage Lab, and hey, we're glad you're here watching this. If this kind of content is helpful to you, go ahead and click that subscribe button down there. That way you'll always be notified when new videos come out. We talk about all kinds of real life situations, just like this one, because this is real. I'm married to one person, but I'm in love with another. You're not the only one who's faced this. The pain, the confusion, the whirlwind of emotion, it's more common than you think. And here's the thing. We in the social sciences recognize that there are different kinds of love. Now, let me be clear. The one kind of love we don't try to define is true love. You know why? Because that phrase is too subjective. True love can mean anything, depending on who's talking. What one person calls true love, another might call something entirely different. So we don't try to box that in, but we do talk about other kinds of love. In fact, there are patterns, signs, and characteristics we can identify. For instance, and we don't have time in this video to break it all down, but in some of our other videos, we dive into something called limerence. It's a very intense kind of love. Maybe that's what you're experiencing. If you're feeling swept away, head over heels, emotionally consumed, chances are it might be limerence. And if you want to understand it better, check out those videos where we talk specifically about that. Just don't be mad at me if something I say hits a little close to home. I've been there. Seriously. I've been exactly where you are right now. I was married to one person and I was madly in love with someone else. I had to make the same choice you're facing. Should I end the marriage, go through the pain of divorce, and run off with the person I felt was the love of my life, my so-called soul mate? So I get it. I really do. Later in this video, I'll tell you what decision I made and why I made it. But the fact that you're still watching tells me something. It tells me you haven't fully made up your mind yet. Or at the very least, you're still wrestling with it. And so let me offer something. Just two things, two essential questions I think you really need to ask yourself before you choose. Here's the first one. Who all is going to be affected by your decision? Because no matter what choice you make, someone's going to get hurt. You might say, what do you mean, Joe? Well, think about it. If you're married to someone who loves you and wants to stay together and you choose to leave them for this other person, you're going to break their heart. That's pain you can't avoid. On the other hand, if you choose to walk away from this intense love you feel with this other person and decide instead to stay in your marriage and try to make it work, then that person is going to be hurt. And either way, you are probably going to get hurt too. So if you're hoping there's a path through this where nobody gets hurt, I wish I could tell you there is. But honestly, there isn't. At this point, somebody's going to feel pain, probably everybody involved. And listen, if you have children in the mix, whether they're young or grown, your choice is going to affect them too. Divorce doesn't just impact the two adults involved. It touches your kids, no matter how old they are. It hits them differently based on their age, sure, but it hits them nonetheless. Now, maybe you're thinking, well, kids are tough, they'll bounce back. And sure, there's a lot of research out there when it comes to children and divorce. I'm not saying that if you go through with it, your kids are doomed for life or that they'll never be okay again. I'm not going to over dramatize things, and I promise I will never lie to you. But will there be an effect on them? In all likelihood, yes. Oh, honestly, it's hard to imagine a situation where it doesn't affect them. It's almost impossible for them to come through completely untouched. Let's say your kids are still in school. We know from research that when their home life is disrupted, especially by something like the end of a marriage, it can start to show up in their academics, particularly in subjects that require logical thinking, like math and science. Why? Because when their emotions get tangled up and confused, it can throw their whole focus off. They may struggle to concentrate, to perform, to care. And on top of that, there's a higher likelihood of behavioral problems. Now, I'm not saying they'll definitely act out, but the chances go up. The stress, the confusion, the grief, it can lead to outbursts, anxiety, even depression. And then there's this layer a lot of people overlook. Let's say you divorce and your spouse eventually remarries or even just starts dating someone seriously. That person, whoever they are, now becomes a presence in your children's lives. So you've got to ask yourself, who is this person going to be around my kids? Will he or she be a good influence, a safe person, a kind one? And it's not just about marriage. Even if your ex just starts dating around casually, your kids could end up being exposed to several different people over time. That matters. Those new adults coming in and out of their lives can leave a mark, for better or worse. Now, please hear me. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm not here to beat you up. That's not what we do. We always tell the truth, plain and simple, and we trust that you're the kind of person who wants to do the right thing. We believe you're trying to make a decision that causes the least amount of damage possible. But if that's true, then one of the essential things you have to think about is this. Who's going to be affected and how are they going to be affected? Be honest with yourself. Don't just nod along with someone who says, oh, kids are resilient, they'll be fine. That's a nice sentiment, but it's not always reality. I remember a man who was planning to leave his wife. He was in love with another woman, one who happened to be 20 years older than him. And she told him, your 3-year-old and your 1-year-old will suffer if you leave. They'll be just fine. Years ago, I left my husband and my daughter turned out okay. So I asked him, do you think maybe she's a little biased in how she sees this? I mean, think about it. She wants him to leave his family and come be with her. And she doesn't want to feel any guilt about how her choices may have impacted her own child years ago. Do you think she might be looking through some rose-colored glasses? It's not that she's a bad person, but she's not exactly a neutral party here, is she? She's got something at stake. So, is she really the best source of wisdom to help you make such a major decision? Even some counselors and therapists will say things like, kids are resilient. They'll be okay. I'll help them through it. And listen, I have deep respect for good counselors. If you've got a solid one, lean on them, use them. They can be incredible resources for helping your children process pain in a healthy way. But when a counselor tries to tell you that your kids will be totally fine, no long-term problems, and that they'll bounce back quickly from everything, I'm telling you, they're wrong. That kind of thinking, that's wishful thinking. It's not based in reality. It's hogwash. Because the truth is, divorce, or even just a significant relational split, does affect your kids. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent. It doesn't mean your kids won't survive it. But it does mean you need to walk into this decision with your eyes wide open. I'm telling you, the research is out there. We're not just talking about one or two studies. We're talking article after article in respected scientific and social science journals, all documenting the many different ways children can be affected by divorce or separation. Now, look, I'm not saying you can't make your own decision. Of course you can. You're an adult and you're free to choose your path. But what I am saying is this: be honest with yourself. Don't buy into a lie. Don't tell yourself, there's no problem, the kids will be fine, nothing bad will happen to them. That's simply not true. At the very least, have the courage to admit to yourself, if I choose this road instead of that one, it will impact my children. And here's how. Be honest. Because you love your kids. And when you love someone, you don't lie to yourself about how your choices will affect them. Now, you might be thinking, Joe, I don't even have kids. You just spent 3 minutes talking about kids and that doesn't apply to me. Fair enough. If that's not your situation, let's shift the focus, because this is still about your lover and your spouse. And no matter which way you turn, someone's going to be hurt. Maybe deeply. Let's start with your spouse. If your spouse still loves you and wants to make the marriage work, but you choose to leave, that's going to feel like a death to them. And honestly, real death might even be easier to process. No, I'm not saying that to be dramatic, and I'm certainly not encouraging anything harmful, not at all. What I mean is that in death, there's finality. In abandonment, there's this aching void, full of questions. Your spouse may ask, what's wrong with me? Why wasn't I enough? Why would you leave me for that other person? No matter what you say, no matter how kindly you try to explain it, those questions are going to come. That pain is going to be real. But what if you go the other way? What if you decide to leave the lover and go back to your marriage? Then he or she, your lover, will ask those same kinds of questions. Why wasn't I worth it? How could you draw me into this deep love and then walk away? Why did you let me fall so hard only to leave? This is not an easy road. Either way you go, someone's going to get hurt. That's the weight of it. Now, if you're deeply in love with this other person, what we in social sciences often refer to as limerence, you probably didn't go looking for it. You didn't wake up one day and say, I think I'll fall in love with someone outside my marriage. No, that's not how it usually happens. What does happen is that someone shows up in your world. Maybe they work near you in the office down the hall. Maybe you see them every day at lunch, or maybe they go to the same church. Maybe they were part of a couple you and your spouse were friends with. What matters isn't so much who they are, it's that you had access, and that's the spark. Access is what makes these emotional affairs, and sometimes physical ones, even possible. In the beginning, it probably felt harmless. Maybe the two of you just clicked. You enjoyed talking. You found each other interesting. You liked each other's sense of humor. Maybe you thought he or she was attractive, but it was still innocent at first. Then something changed. At some point, the two of you started sharing things. Not just casual conversation, but deeper things, personal things. Your fears, your struggles, your dreams. The things you might not even share with your spouse, and it felt like magic. Like, wow, nobody's ever gotten me like this before. Then he or she started opening up to you too. You both felt seen, understood, and before long, the emotional connection between you was powerful, even overwhelming. It felt right. It felt real. You might have even thought, this is what love is supposed to feel like. Maybe you asked yourself, why can't my marriage be like this? Why haven't I ever experienced this before? And you didn't know how to talk about it, because how could anyone else understand? It felt so unique, so intense, like your souls had merged, like this wasn't just a relationship. It was something eternal, something cosmic, and you didn't want to lose it. That kind of connection, it's hard to walk away from, but here you are, watching this video, which means something inside you is still conflicted. Something in you is saying, I made a vow. I made a commitment to this person over here, and walking away from that for this feels wrong. And so you started hiding. You started keeping secrets, going places where no one would see you together, talking about things you know you shouldn't be talking about, at least not with someone who isn't your spouse. That's where things are now. And I get it. I've lived it. And I'll say again, this isn't about shame. It's about clarity. It's about truth. Because when you're standing in the middle of that emotional storm, it's really hard to think clearly. But that's exactly why you have to slow down and really think. Let's be honest. If you've been involved with someone you're not married to, chances are it didn't just stay at conversation. At some point, you probably held hands, which led to hugging, which led to kissing, and eventually, most likely, you made love to each other. For exposure to that kind of environment is the greatest trauma evidence of adversity. That's all. I mean, that's all. And with that physical intimacy came a whole flood of emotions, a mixture of passion, joy, confusion, and probably guilt. You've been hiding, you've been covering things up, and now you're just tired of it. You don't want to sneak around anymore. You're tired of meeting in restaurants a few towns away. You're tired of checking into hotels under the radar. You want to be open about it. You want to live freely, to be completely and fully with this person in the light, not in the shadows. That's how it all started. And now here you are standing at this emotional crossroads. If you're still struggling with whether to leave your spouse and go be with your lover, what you're likely experiencing right now is something we call cognitive dissonance. It's when your values and beliefs say one thing, but your actions are going in the opposite direction. And that internal contradiction, it messes you up big time. You feel absolute bliss when you're with your lover. You miss them deeply when you're apart. But at the same time, when you look at your spouse or your kids, or when you sit in church and listen to a sermon, the guilt creeps in. It punches you in the gut. It pulls you down. That emotional roller coaster starts to take its toll. On one hand, you feel like this other person gets you like no one ever has. On the other hand, you feel like you're betraying something sacred. And now you've even started to consider changing your beliefs and values just to ease the conflict. You're asking yourself, maybe I've been wrong all along. Maybe love is supposed to feel like this. Maybe I need to adjust what I believe so this can feel right. That's what limerence does to you. It's powerful. It hijacks your emotions. You find yourself thinking about them constantly. You daydream. You replay conversations in your head, relive moments, laugh to yourself about inside jokes. You hold on to the little gifts, the notes, the texts, the photos. You treasure the places you've been together. You fantasize about the future, about building a life together. And when you're in their presence and you feel that warmth and love in their voice or in their eyes, it feels like heaven, like nothing else in the world matters. But with that intensity comes another side, hypervigilance. You start watching them closely. Maybe one day they don't smile the way they usually do. Maybe they seem distant or quiet or distracted. And suddenly your heart starts racing. You panic inside. Are they pulling away? Did I do something wrong? Are they changing their mind? Even if you don't have physical symptoms like heart palpitations, upset stomach, or rapid breathing, the emotional impact is still massive. 1 minute you're on top of the world, and the next you're drowning in misery. The highs are so high, and the lows, they're brutal. And that fear, what if I lose them? It haunts you. The thought of this person walking out of your life feels unbearable. So now, you're not just struggling with guilt, you're terrified of loss. That's when you start comparing. You look at your lover, and then you look at your spouse. And whether you want to or not, in your mind, you start stacking them side by side. And almost always, your spouse loses. Even if you say, I love my spouse, he's a good man, she's a good woman, I can't say anything bad about them, deep down you know, in that mental scoreboard, the other person wins every time, because your spouse is now tied to everything that's keeping you from being with this new love. And the emotional weight of that comparison is crushing. And that's the prison you're living in. You're miserable, torn between what you feel and what you believe, between the thrill of new love and the covenant of a long-standing promise, between wanting freedom and knowing the cost of it. I should say this plainly. If you've gotten involved with someone who's not your spouse, chances are you've already crossed several lines. You probably held hands, which led to hugging, which led to kissing, and most likely you've made love to each other. And now you're swimming in a mess of mixed emotions about it. You've been hiding, keeping secrets, sneaking around to other towns for a meal or a night in some hotel. You're tired of it. You don't want to live in the shadows anymore. You just want to be open about it. You want to be with this person fully, without hiding. That's how it started. And now here you are, stuck in this emotional turmoil, caught between your lover and your spouse, unsure of what to do. If that's where you are right now, you're likely experiencing what we in the social sciences call cognitive dissonance. That's when your actions and your values are at odds with each other. Your beliefs say one thing. Maybe you believe in commitment, in fidelity, in doing what's right, but your actions are doing the opposite. That contradiction, it messes you up inside. So here's what happens. You feel absolute bliss when you're with this other person. You miss them when you're not together. But then the guilt creeps in. You think about your kids, your husband, your wife. Maybe you're still going to church, sitting in that pew while the preacher speaks, and inside you're torn up with guilt. It's ripping you apart. You ride this emotional roller coaster every day, belief and desire pulling in opposite directions. And it's so now maybe you're even considering shifting your beliefs and values to justify what you're doing, just so the guilt will go away. And this is all intensified because you're in what we call limerence, that powerful emotional obsession. You're thinking about this person all the time, daydreaming, replaying moments, treasuring little gifts, places you've been together, fantasizing about a future with them. And it all feels so alive. So, right, you hear the love in their voice, see it in their eyes, and it feels like heaven. But then you become hyper-aware, almost paranoid, watching their every move. Are they pulling away? Are they less warm today? Did they say something different? And the minute you sense even a hint of rejection, it hurts deeply. You start longing more, even panicking. You feel it physically. Your heart races. Your stomach knots up. Your breathing changes. Sometimes you don't get those physical symptoms, but emotionally you're swinging between extreme joy and deep misery. And you worry, what if this ends? What if they leave? What if it's all taken away? Then you start comparing. You compare your lover to your spouse, and almost every time your spouse loses. Why? Because right now, all those intense positive emotions are tied to the new person. And your spouse, they feel like the obstacle to your happiness. You may still say, I love my husband, or she's a good woman. You may even believe those words. But when you really compare heart to heart, the person you're drawn to wins every time. And that's the prison you're living in. That's what's making you miserable. But here's the thing. You're going to do something. You can't live like this forever. You will make a decision. Eventually, you're going to choose. You'll either end your marriage to go be with this other person, or you'll end the affair and try to make your marriage work. Now, let me say this clearly. Don't try to do both at the same time. You might think, well, I'll keep talking to my lover while I figure out how to fix my marriage, or vice versa. No, those are two separate decisions. First, you decide, what are you going to do about this affair? end it, continue it, then and only then you ask, do I want to work on my marriage? Two different steps. And whatever choice you're leaning toward, count the cost. What will you gain if you leave with your lover? What will you gain if you stay with your spouse? Then ask yourself, what will you lose if you leave your spouse? And what will you lose if you end the affair? People tell me all the time, but I get to be with this person who makes me feel alive. That's worth the cost. And I understand that. I really do. I've been there. I've walked through this. I've worked with thousands of people in the exact same place you are right now. And right now, I know you feel like nobody else understands, but I promise you, thousands upon thousands have felt what you're feeling. I've lived it myself. And I can tell you this, what you're feeling right now, this intense passion, won't last. I know you think it will. I know you believe this is your forever feeling. You may even be thinking, Joe, you don't know what you're talking about. That's exactly what I thought when someone told me the same thing years ago, but I'm telling you, it changes. It has to. Nothing in life stays this intense forever. Not a minute. But when you make a decision in the middle of that high, thinking this will last forever, you're making a choice based on a temporary emotion. You say it's worth the sacrifice, worth what you're giving up, but that feeling will fade. Let's say you do end your marriage and pursue this relationship. Here's what usually happens. Once the fog clears and the emotional intensity dies down, you both start counting the losses. She starts counting what she gave up. He starts noticing what he lost. And statistically, I know you're an individual, not a number, but statistically, most people who leave their marriage for their affair partner don't end up marrying them. And even if they do, the odds of that marriage lasting are extremely low. Why? Because the foundation is weak. You both lost something to be together, and often that regret creeps in. You look back at the spouse who loved you, the children who were affected, the friendships that were broken, the moral compass you may have compromised, and you wonder, was it worth it? So let me give you a tool. October 10th, 10. Think about your choice and ask yourself, how will I feel about this decision in 10 minutes? In 10 months? In 10 years? Be brutally honest with yourself. Now, if you choose to end the affair and stay in your marriage, that's another journey, and it won't be easy, but it is possible. I've helped countless couples rebuild trust, restore intimacy, and fall in love again, but you've got to make a clean break first. One decision at a time. Let's be real. You can't live in limbo forever. At some point, you're going to have to make a decision, maybe not today, but soon. You're either going to end your marriage and go try to be with this person you've fallen for, or you're going to end that relationship and try to make your marriage work. But please, don't try to do both at the same time. That'll only make things worse. These are two separate decisions. One, what are you going to do about the affair? Two, are you going to try to salvage your marriage? Those need to be answered clearly and separately. Start by counting the cost. What do you gain if you leave with your lover? What do you gain if you stay with your spouse? What do you lose if you leave? What do you lose if you stay? Ask yourself those hard questions, because this is your life, and it's going to impact the lives of others too. You might think that I feel something so intense, so deep, it must be real. It must be worth the risk. I've been there. I know how overwhelming that feels. And I've talked with thousands, literally thousands of people in your exact position. Right now, it feels like no one in the world has ever experienced what you're feeling, but I promise you, this intensity, this emotional high, it's not permanent. It will change. You think it won't. You believe this person is your soulmate, but I'm telling you, as someone who's been there, it won't last at this level. And if you're making a lifelong decision based on a temporary feeling, you're setting yourself up for pain. Suppose you leave your spouse and pursue this new relationship. You may think it's all going to work out because it feels right, but statistically, and again, I know you're not a number, you're a person, but the odds that you'll end up marrying this person are extremely low. And even if you do marry them, the odds of divorcing are extremely high. Why? Because when the initial intensity fades, reality sets in. You both start counting the costs, the damage done, the trust broken, the relationships lost. And even if you're still together, the pressure of everything you gave up can create cracks in the foundation. It's hard. Then you look back and ask, was it worth it? So I want to give you a framework I teach often, October 10th, 10. Ask yourself, how will I feel about this decision in 10 minutes? How will I feel in 10 months? And how will I feel in 10 years? Because I promise your future self is going to have some thoughts about what you do today. Now, if you decide to stay in your marriage and end the affair, you will grieve. You're going to mourn that person. It's going to hurt because, let's be honest, they were important to you. But think long term. In 10 months, 10 years, will you be proud of the person you chose to be? And here's one more critical thing to think about. Who are you becoming? If you change your beliefs and values to justify doing something you once believed was wrong, you will become a different person. One day, you may look in the mirror and wonder, where did I go? Where's the me I used to respect? You lose a piece of yourself when you abandon your integrity. So think carefully. You don't have to rush. You don't have to let anyone else make the decision for you, not even me. But you do need to be honest with yourself, and wise people don't walk this alone. I strongly recommend getting help. Talk to someone you trust. There are free resources that can guide you through this. Or call us and talk to one of our client representatives. We're not going to tell you what to do, but we will help you see things more clearly and make the decision that's best for your life and your future. Drop a comment below or ask your question. We'd love to hear from you and help in any way we can. You're not alone. And you're not stuck.